Next, we're going to play a little game called What Would Betsy Do? So these are just some common scenarios from co-ops or internships that you might find yourself in, and we're going to get Betsy's advice on what she believes the best way to handle them are.
Depending on how the answers go, we may get T-shirts made. Maybe, but maybe not.
I know. I mean, I feel like I always want to ask you for advice, so let's go ahead and see the first one.
All right.
Oh.
All right, bear with us, please. We're having some
technical difficulties. You know what?
This happens. And so Betsy would say, just keep going. Figure it out.
Here we go.
You go from there.
What would Betsy do? It came up eventually. It's here. And it only took like 2 seconds. So I'll let Jessica go ahead and guide the first question.
First question. You're 3 weeks into a co-op and you finished all of your assigned projects. What would Betsy do?
First of all, congratulations. If you're 3 weeks in and you're just getting started and you've got, 4 to 6 months in front of you, this is a great opportunity to ask to shadow departments you might not get a chance. For sure, go to your supervisor. Make sure that all the assignments were done correctly and just say, is there anything you need in addition for these assignments? Because sometimes they'll start new folks with, they build on what they're going to ask you to do, which is fair, so they don't overwhelm you. But if you've gotten to that point, I'd say, make sure everything's good there. Ask if there's other things you can do, and then ask if they're like, no, we don't have anything this week. Can I be shadowing in other departments? Are there other things I can be learning? Just say, I would love to learn. What can I do to help? One of the most important things you can do in any co-op, whether your assignments are done or not, is you kind of have to start paying attention to what's going on around you. And by that, if everyone's stressed out, but you're just like, this is great, I got nothing to do. No. You need to jump in and ask, how can I help? Being proactive is a huge part of that. And it doesn't come naturally to all of us because it can feel really intimidating when everyone's busy or looks stressed out. But you may not automatically know what to do to help, so you have to ask. Go to your supervisor, go to your mentor, go to whoever any of the other interns are. If there's returning co-ops, ask, hey, what might be helpful? Can you guide me on this? I think with very rare exceptions, someone's going to find something, whether it's shadowing, whether it's, oh, we'd love to have you help with this. Great, thank you. Sometimes when students do that, they end up discovering an area with a company they had no idea they were interested in. So there's a lot of ways to do that, but if you find yourself twiddling your thumbs because you've done everything, don't just sit there. Definitely go ask for other ways to be involved.
That's a great answer. I mean, for somebody who hasn't actively been in these co-ops yourself, I feel like you still have better answers to these questions. I don't know. Maybe you've just absorbed the years of co-op experiences that people have had, and you just have this giant reserve of great advice. But
I have worked with students on a lot of interviews on mistakes and things like that. And so, yeah, you pick up some stuff, but also just knowing what it's like in the working world. I've supervised volunteers. I've supervised interns at various points in my career. And the ones that, whether they knew what they were doing or not, the ones that asked what else they could do to help, that was always huge. Even if you didn't have anything for them at the moment, them just asking was amazing. So, little tip.
I like it. And I would agree. It's interesting. I had a friend messaging me this summer even who's doing an internship right now for an oil company. And she was asking, she's like, we interned together at another site. And she was asking, what do I do? I've never had this experience, but I don't have any work to do right now. And I don't want to go ask other mentors or ask other people to give me work because I don't want to necessarily be going around my boss or make it seem like they're not doing their job. But ultimately, I don't feel like people take it that way. If you go to your boss and they're like, I don't have anything for you right now, you could always just be like, okay, I like how you said, is it okay if I go shadow another department? Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I think your friend, that's a great point that you don't want to go around your boss ever. Because they don't know you yet. It takes time to build that trust with anyone new that you're working with. On both sides, they need to trust you. You need to trust them. And so always starting there saying, I've gotten this all done. Is there anything else you need me to do? I want to help. If not, can I go shadow? But asking that and going to them first is always going to be the best relationship builder and trust builder.
Right. And I have a personal experience that is a little bit similar to that, but sometimes you may be surprised by what your manager responds to you with. So in my second internship, I ran out of work, and so I went to my manager. She didn't have much for me to do, but other people on the team had projects that they wanted my help on. And so the other people on the team kind of brought me into some of the stuff that they were doing and were able to help me fill up my time a little bit better.
And I'm going to go on and add something to this because it made me think about, I got to take a tour a few years ago where we had several students doing an internship at a major manufacturing facility, which is always amazing for us to get to see when you guys are getting to actually do the work. But one of the co-ops had a real-time question for the person who was taking us on the tour. And I was like, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Can I just ask a quick question? They're like, oh, of course. And like his response, I'm not going to remember what it was about, but it was like, oh yeah, just reach out to so-and-so on this team and just, send them a Teams message. And I saw sort of the look of panic on the student's face of like, I've never done that. I could see it in her face. And I wanted to like jump in and clarify. Of course I did not, because I would not embarrass a student that way. But I saw her just like that look of just huge eyes, like, I don't know. And I saw him start to get it, and she was like, so I don't know this person. Are they going to know who I am? He's like, oh, right. Like he got it after a minute, because for those of us who've been out there for a while, me saying, oh, send a Teams message, to me, that's nothing. It's like, oh yeah, send a Teams message. But if you've never done that before, ask. And that's what the student did. And she just said, is there anything else I need to include? Like she asked the right follow-up questions. Don't be afraid to ask your manager that. If they give you that piece of like, oh, do this thing, and you're like, just say, you know what, I apologize. I've never done this before. I want to make sure I do it right so I represent you and the team well. No, I'm going to bang the heck out of this table, sorry. No one's going to judge you for that. They'd much rather you do it right, but it's okay to not know. But start with your manager.
I like that. No, that was a good piece of advice. I'll go ahead and move on to the next question in the game, what would Betsy do? Which I'm like so locked into everything you're saying that I'm forgetting that we're even doing in a game, like any sort of game. But let's go ahead and see. You want to ask somebody on your team for an informal mentorship, but you're nervous. What would Betsy do?
So this one's really hard. I'm going to say like you will get a lot of conflicting advice on how to go about this, because some people will tell you like you need to find a natural relationship with someone. And sometimes the person you want to be your mentor, you don't have that natural relationship with. So I will probably give you less of a straightforward answer and a couple different things. I think one, you got to take a step back. Even if you're like, I definitely want to go ask Jessica. I want her to be my mentor. Look around, sort of see, like, do you know Jessica well for that ask not to be uncomfortable? And if the answer is no, then maybe you start with a much smaller ask. It's something like, you knock on Jessica's door, or you send her a Teams message or an email just saying, obviously I'm only going to be at this co-op for a few months. Would it be possible to go grab coffee or lunch? And I just pick your brain on advice you might have for someone to do well in this co-op and moving forward, since you've already been, an engineering student and all that. Like, make it a much more informal start, because yes to a lunch is far less intimidating, because sometimes when you ask someone to be a mentor, they're like, I should not be anyone's mentor. Like that, like some of it's that, or they'll be like, I don't know if I have time. Someone can make time for lunch. And then if it works well, they may open the door and say something like, oh, if you have other questions while you're here, let me know. I'd love to have coffee again or go to lunch. So it may be an informal way you go about it. I think it's tough because everyone's going to respond to that differently. I think if someone came right out to me and said, would you be my mentor? I'd be like, oh, okay. Because I think part of that is defining what mentorship means to you and to them. Because they may be thinking, oh, I got to meet with you 5 times a week. And maybe you're just wanting to get some time with them every week or not. So I think I'm probably taking a much more generic approach to it, because you have to define in your head what you want mentorship to look like. And I think almost everybody wants to give time. And the other thing I would say is, if you get a no to coffee or lunch, don't take that personally. Someone may just have so much on their plate that they absolutely cannot right now, and it's not they don't want to. If they say, I would love to, but I probably can't for about 6 weeks, if you're still there in 6 weeks, follow up, say thank you so much. I'll check back in and see, what your workload is like, at that point. Don't take that personally. That's maybe someone who's gotten really good at setting boundaries.
Yeah. So. Which is also good in a separate conversation.
Yeah, I hope that's helpful. I think it's hard to, without defining for yourself what mentorship looks like and not knowing what the other person assumes it is, it's kind of hard. So start informally and go from there.
Okay.
I like that. I really do think that's good advice, because I feel like, so obviously when we go in as co-ops, our mentors are actually people who just graduated like 2 years ago. And if somebody came to me in the next 2 years and asked me for mentorship, I feel like I'd be like, I have so much to focus on right now. But then I also don't know how to approach this. Like, I don't know how to be a mentor to somebody. And I watched people do that with me, because sometimes it's just young engineers are just thrown into a mentorship role by their manager, and they have no idea what that means or what that entails. But then it's kind of something that you can slip into, from what I've seen a little bit more, when you start out with somebody who's prepared to like ask you the right questions, like we were talking about earlier, and kind of just knows how to approach it from their end. But
yeah. You said that you don't know that you would know how to be a mentor, but from what I've seen from working with you, like, that is the majority of our job, right? Like, we mentor other students on how to improve their resumes and how to get ready for interviews.
Yeah. It's funny how that works, because it's so easy to like doubt yourself and your own abilities and what advice you really have to give.
Yeah.
Even when we're sitting here on a podcast for that sole purpose. So.
Yeah. And so that, I feel like that ties back into what Betsy was saying about the weight of the word mentor and how that can seem so daunting. And that's why you need to be on the same page with somebody about like what your expectations are from that relationship, because at the end of the day, like, you have learned mentorship skills, I've learned mentorship skills, but calling yourself a mentor, like, that sounds crazy.
It's a big word. I much prefer career peer.
Yeah. I would say like that makes me think too. Sometimes many onboarding at big corporations, they do try and build a mentorship capacity, or like program capacity for onboarding, especially straight out of college, which I really like. But you're getting assigned to someone who they may have done zero matching. It may just be they're in your department. It is okay if you all don't click. It is okay if you don't naturally have that rapport with someone. You may find it someplace else. You can still learn things, and sometimes their job as that mentor, that, onboarding buddy, whatever the company's calling it, is, if they realize they are not the best resource for you, guiding you towards those resources. And it's okay for you to keep looking for other mentors in that case. So,
I like that. Thank you.
All right, let's move to the next question. Okay, this is a good one. A teammate keeps taking credit for your contributions during meetings. How do you approach that? What would Betsy do?
Okay, so that's a tough one. First of all, there's nothing worse than if you have been working really hard on something, or you and a teammate have been doing something, and I've absolutely seen that at points in my career. I've experienced it a few times. It sort of depends on, I hate to say it, like, how you handle it's probably going to depend on, is it a fellow co-op? Is it a fellow entry level? Is it your boss? It really depends, because the peers know, they've worked with me. I'm like, get everything in writing. So in those cases, if it's one of those things where it is someone who you're competing with for a promotion or for the next step up in the company, yeah, everything in writing. You're going to be emailing afterwards and saying, here are my notes from the meeting. And now you've got the time and date stamp that if you needed to go to a boss and talk about this, this was something, that I was working on with Jessica, and then Hannah came in and sort of, took it and tried to take credit for it. Like, does that sound a little whiny? Maybe, but not if that's happening consistently. If over the course of multiple months, someone is continuing to try and take something you've been working on and put time into, or even just like your great thinking, there are ways to do that are not, well, that was my idea. That was my, it can sound very like, sixth grade. But then there are also ways casually in conversations, if it's something that you feel confident and you can read the room well enough to know if Hannah's or Jessica, either one's been doing this with me over and over again, I can say, oh, Jessica, I'm so glad you liked that idea we talked about yesterday. Let me expand on that. You have to know if you feel comfortable doing that and all of that. It's a tough situation. If it's your boss, that's really hard. I'm going to say it's really hard. I've been fairly lucky in my career that most of my supervisors, managers, leaders, have wanted to give credit to the people for good ideas and good work. And that's that trust thing. And sometimes you don't know until you're in it whether or not you're with a supervisor or that does that or doesn't do that. I had a supervisor in DC who didn't do it to me, but did it to one of my colleagues, and that's hard. And so what you try to do as a supportive colleague is give them credit when you can. But if it's happening over and over again, from a supervisor, then there's a certain point where you're also getting things in writing, because I guarantee if they're doing it to you, they're doing it to your colleagues. They've done it to others. I don't want to get you all fired. I talked about calculated risks in my introduction, but like that one, if you don't want to get yourself fired, but there may be ways to sort of get credit for the work you're doing with timestamps and emails and things like that. Summaries of notes go a long way in an email because they can delete it, but you've still got yours. So I don't know if that totally helps, but I think you have to really navigate it carefully depending on the situation, depending on what tier you're in and who it is that's doing it to you. But yeah, I always want you to get credit for your work. So there's some ways to go about it.
I will say too, I feel like good record keeping is always also good practice to have in any role. So that prepares you for situations like that ahead of time. So I think that's good advice, like the notes, the after meeting notes, summary, and emails as well. I like that. That's not something that I've necessarily done, but I would definitely pick up on it.
Yeah. I think as you all move forward, regardless of where you go, especially in big meetings or if it's even with a supervisor, if you're getting feedback, and that's tough when you're getting, constructive feedback that maybe you thought you were doing better than you were. You take a minute, you walk it off, and then you go back to your office and you write down everything you talked about if they're not sending it to you, and like, dear Zach, thank you so much for the conversation. I've really thought a lot about it. I want to make sure I've captured everything that we discussed and things I can be working on. Below are my notes. Please add anything that I might have missed, correct anything so that, it's a chance to get on the same page. Some people will really not like that you do that. But if you do that consistently with everything you're doing, whether it's after a meeting, whether it's after meeting with just a team on anything, it becomes, that is just what they do. They take notes. It actually is a great thing for you because it's not seen as like a bad move or something obnoxious so much as this is what I do.
Yeah, I mean, it ensures clarity. It ensures understanding to a certain extent.
It's also great if you're having a conversation about a raise or a promotion and they specifically say, in 6 months, if this, and this happens, thank you so much for the great meeting, Hannah. I just wanted to recap my understanding that while not official, the belief is that in 6 months, if I accomplish these, these achievables, I may be eligible for promotion or raise, and I just want to make sure I understand if there's anything else I should be doing as well. Heck yeah, put that in writing, because then 6 months later, if you've done all those things, you can take that email. You can take your list of wins and say, I would love to have that conversation now.
I love it. That's great advice.
That's awesome. I mean, also, I know this isn't one of our listed questions, but when it comes to asking for a raise, how would you approach that? Like, what do you think is when is it an appropriate time to ask for that? Also, when do you approach it? Like, that's something that I'm genuinely asking, knowing that I'm about to start working, and I've not ever needed to have that conversation or really thought about it until you just brought it up.
So it's one of those things that, first of all, understand the company you're working with, the organization. Some companies very much, especially entry level, they want to start everyone at the same spot. And sometimes asking for a raise is something you'll never have to do because they automatically reward hard work. You're automatically getting raised more than just cost of living and things like that. Some companies really value keeping their team, and they do that for you, which is great. Doesn't mean there might not still be a time to ask about a promotion. I'm a big fan of, if you're working for a for-profit company, promotion should also come with promotion salary. You shouldn't be doing the work of 5 people without getting compensated for that. So it's one of those things that realistically, y'all are going to start in these entry-level jobs. You're not probably asking for a raise the first year. That's not terribly realistic. But hopefully you're getting cost of living increases and things like that. Hopefully the company is doing that. I think it's a nuanced conversation because you have to look at, if you and several other people start at the same time and you're all doing the same things and delivering well and delivering sort of on the same requirements, and they're getting raises and you're not, that's a conversation you start with your supervisor and say, and it's going to be hard, you're going to be uncomfortable. I suggest you don't blindside your supervisor ahead of time. You send them an email saying, I'd love to sit down and talk about this, because just hitting them up at the end of the day when they don't know this conversation is coming is very unfair. But there may be things you don't know that are completely fair. Maybe those 2 other people have taken on significant work that they've never spoken about, if somebody left the company. So there may be more to it. I think it's having transparency with your colleagues is huge. I am not a fan, and this is where a lot of our corporate partners don't always love this. I think you all should absolutely be talking to each other about your salaries. Because first of all, if I know that Jessica took on significant duties while someone was out on maternity leave, and when that person came back, they moved them into a higher role, and Jessica kept those duties, she absolutely should be getting paid more than me. If she's doing, my job and a half of someone else's, that's a case where understanding what's going on and knowing that you've done that, talking about that, it creates that transparency. No one is surprised by salaries. But the reality too is, like, if you start 3 years after me, your entry level is probably going to be higher than mine was. And so that's why I say it's nuanced. There's never an easy answer to this one, but I think getting to the point where you're ready to talk about it, look at what your job requirements are. Look at how many of those are you hitting consistently. Absolutely keep a list of kudos. I call it the kudos file. Anytime your manager, your team's like, great job, Hannah. That was amazing. Keep that email. Keep track of your annual performance reviews. Keep track of how you're doing and all the things they say you're doing well. Because if those are consistently top-notch, if those are great, and you're the one people are going to help with more stuff, you should absolutely talk about that. Probably not, 12 months in. With very rare instances would I suggest that be a 12-month conversation. But if 5 months down the road, your salary hasn't changed at all, and the work you're doing hasn't changed at all, it's very much time. Like, you should always be getting more of something, more responsibility, more opportunities to grow. And if you're not, look at whether this is the team to stay on, look at whether or not you're doing enough to grow your own skills, because you should not be doing the exact same thing with zero changes 5 years in with the same pay.
Good advice. I like it. Thank you. And I know that wasn't part of our questions. No, that's okay.
It's a great conversation. It's not a simple answer because, like if you're in the government, if you're working at a nonprofit, like the ability to do raises sometimes is not there. You might get more vacation days with a nonprofit or something like that. So it's knowing it's not always an easy thing, but I absolutely think it's worth having the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. We can go on to our actual next question in the game, but it's just that you hear a joke in the office that makes you uncomfortable. What would you do?
So I will tell you, early in my career, I was surrounded, and this is, I was the youngest person in an office of men. Luckily, this situation itself never happened. I did not have anyone make any jokes that made me uncomfortable. So, I was surrounded by people who were not doing that. But I absolutely can say it can be really hard no matter what. Just think age. If you're the youngest person in the room and everyone else is laughing at some joke that you're just like, this is not okay. I don't know that at that point in my career I would have felt comfortable saying something. I absolutely would now. I think there are ways to politely shut that down. Sometimes it takes and I know this sounds like such like after school special kind of advice, but like sometimes it takes just one voice saying, hey, that's making me uncomfortable. I'd rather be the person that they're not going to say the joke around, because that means they're probably not going to say the joke around a lot of people. And it's very uncomfortable to do that. It's 100% uncomfortable. But if you don't feel like you have the ability to do that, or if you missed your chance, if you missed the chance to do that, go talk to your supervisor. Go talk to the person if you know them well enough. It's going to be an uncomfortable conversation no matter what. Whether you're in a room full of like 10 people and you're like, hey, I don't know that that's funny and that's kind of offensive. So maybe we should get back to whatever it is you're talking about. The room's going to get silent. And sometimes someone's going to say, oh, come on, it was just a joke. You can say, fair enough, still offended, still uncomfortable with this conversation. So let's maybe move on to the next thing. And go from there. And if you missed that chance, if it sort of went by, which that happens sometimes, let's be clear, sometimes it happens, and you are kicking yourself for not saying something, you can still say something. You can go to the person if you know them well enough and say, hey, I want to get 5 minutes. This is a little uncomfortable, but what you said yesterday in the meeting really made me uncomfortable, and I have not stopped thinking about it. And I know you were saying it in jest, but I have the feeling if it made me uncomfortable, there may be another person who's uncomfortable. Maybe we just don't talk about that. And because I don't want to get into what the joke might have been. Sometimes there may be a real reason to say like, hey, this is 1,000% not okay, and you can talk about why. But I think knowing it's not going to be comfortable, and a lot of us hate confrontation. And that's what a one-on-one will feel like. And they're absolutely going to say you're blowing it up out of proportion. But you can say, I'm not trying to do anything other than just say it made me uncomfortable, and I would love it if we could maybe not make those jokes in the future. If it's severe enough and it continues, that's a whole HR issue, and you absolutely need to get it on the record. So sometimes it just takes one person saying, let's not do this. So
I agree. And I think for me, something that I've practiced a lot. So I happen to be one of those rare people that maybe doesn't always struggle as much with confrontation. But I have struggled with how I approach it. And I have to be very deliberate about it. And of course, I'm not saying like confronting like my supervisor or something. That would be difficult for anyone. But I know that a lot of people are typically quick to react in a defensive manner if they feel like they're under attack, and that's almost everyone. Like, I actively have to fight that as well. And sometimes it's hard, but what really helps is the delivery. Like, if somebody says something in a way that makes it feel like they're not coming from a place of harsh judgment or speaking on your character, and their tone of voice is polite and friendly instead of maybe like, hey, like, you said this, that makes such a huge impact. And I've noticed that it works better on me too when somebody doesn't come at me in like a aggressive manner. So I'd say that's also super important, because I'm not saying that everybody at work needs to be your best friend, but at the end of the day, the more connections you have with people where they respect you and you respect them, the easier it makes your life in general. So that's just something I was thinking about when you were speaking.
No, I agree with that 100%.
It's easy to get caught up sometimes in like, hey, like, this joke was not cool. I can't believe somebody would say something like that. But I feel like I've been working on trying to understand where other people come from, and that like it's so nuanced whether or not somebody thinks something is appropriate just by chance. Like, maybe where they were raised, it just wasn't like that. But
also, I will say you hit the nail on the head, and it's the delivery. You'll notice when I said if you went and had the one-on-one, it was not, you made this joke. Right. It made me uncomfortable. It was like, so I want to talk about the thing you said yesterday. Like, I have not been able to stop thinking about it. It made me very uncomfortable. It's not turning it into the whole room was uncomfortable. It's not any of that. It's just saying, like, if possible, I'd really love it if we, if you would not make that kind of joke again. It's still going to make someone defensive, but I've made it much more about, like, yes, this has bothered me, and I want to just talk to you because I respect you as a coworker. They're still not going to love it, let's be clear. Right. But it less sort of like, it was really horrible what you said yesterday. I think a lot of people are uncomfortable. I know I was. Like, that's a different, even if I do it in a nice, gentle tone, that's still...
It's pretty...
Yeah, it's aggressive. It's an aggressive versus me saying, like, it really made me uncomfortable, and I have not been able to stop thinking about it.
And it's still giving somebody a chance to like come around, because a lot of the time, if it's an older coworker too, they really may not know. Yeah. And so most of the time, people don't want to make others uncomfortable. So it gives them a chance to like still continue to be a person you want around. So I like the way that you said it, because I thought that was a good approach, but I thought I would point it out.
I like that.
Okay.
All right. That leads me to our final question for what would Betsy do? You are juggling a part-time class with a full-time co-op, and you feel overwhelmed. What would Betsy do?
So probably not the advice that every parent would want to hear, but if you are at a point in the semester where you can potentially drop the class, I would honestly consider doing that, because if you're already overwhelmed, you are not going to be able to give the best of yourself to either thing. And I know this sounds terrible, but a class can be repeated if need be, and if you do it early enough, like, there's no harm, no foul. You can repeat the class, or you can drop, and it's like you never took it, and you can give your all to this co-op, because the class, I want you to do well in the class. I want you to do well in the co-op, but if you quit the co-op, that chance may be closed to you at that company, barring like, something major happening with family health or, something like that, an emergency, where we've definitely had that happen with students where co-op has said, come back, let us know, we'd love to have you back. Like, that's one thing. But if this is sort of I just underestimated how busy I would be with this class and the co-op, you're working 40 hours a week and then trying to give your all to a class, I would honestly consider dropping the class. And if that's not an option, if you can't drop the class and you for sure don't want to, have the door sort of shut at this co-op, then you've got to be really honest with the co-op. And it's going to be a super uncomfortable conversation where you're going to have to say, I think I overcommitted by trying to take this class and do the co-op. I just want to let you know that I am absolutely willing to do, whatever it takes to do well, but I am a little bit overcommitted, and it's going to be uncomfortable, but I think if you're not showing up the way you should at the co-op, and I don't mean physically, you're probably there, but you're not doing the work you know you're capable of, you got to have that conversation so they know what's going on. Again, it's sort of learn from my mistakes. I probably wouldn't have said that way back when, but my first would be see if you can drop the class without any harm, anything like that, so that you have the chance to still get all the content from the class and do well, but also that you don't lose this chance at the co-op, because co-ops are absolutely a great opportunity for what comes next. Sometimes that's where your full-time job offer comes from. So it's not a perfect answer, but it's an honest answer that I would probably start with. Where are you in the semester? Should you potentially consider dropping the class? And if that's just absolutely not possible at that point, it's going to be just a bad decision. You got to talk to the co-op and be honest about what you're capable of, and then show them you can do it. Whatever you say you're going to do, you got to do. You got to prove to them that, like, yes, I've overcommitted a little bit. Maybe that's you can do stuff on the weekends if that's not normally something they let co-ops do. I don't know. You have to think about what you can do. So
yeah. That reminds me of how people say you only have one chance to make a first impression. Like, if you decided to try to drop your co-op so that you can complete the class, like, that is a first impression that you can never make again. That is an interaction that you had with people, and you quit on the opportunity. So there's always an opportunity to redo a class, but getting a first shot at a job is not something that you can do again.
And the other impact of accepting a co-op and quitting after you've already started, they're not going to find a replacement. They were counting on. So as you both know, co-ops are given real work. You're not at the copy machine making copies. You're not making coffee and bringing it to the big meeting. You're doing real work. Sometimes you're a project engineer. Sometimes you're an analyst. Sometimes you're doing things that the company counts on having that help for. So now they're down a person. They have no way to replace it because it's middle of the co-op semester. So you've closed the door, but you've also cost them a little bit of time and money. And that's a good life lesson that, like, when you commit, we want you to follow through. And I would also say to students, like, if this happens, you don't have to make this decision in a vacuum. Reach out to me or Zach. We will talk with you about it. You don't have to be ashamed. Like, if you've worked with us, we're a judgment-free zone. Like, you come in, we'll absolutely help you work through the decisions. But you don't want to slam doors to your future career, especially if you decide to go into something that is, a small niche field.
Yeah. Another thing to think about, too, is if you quit a co-op, you're no longer enrolled as a full-time student, right? You
Correct.
would forego that 1 credit hour class, and you would be taking maybe 3-4 credit hours.
You're no longer full-time enrolled. If you quit a co-op in the middle of the semester, it's unlikely you're picking something else up, and you can't join enough classes in the middle of the semester to be full-time enrolled. So there's a lot of ramifications for that decision. So reach out and talk to us if you find yourself in that. But I'd say the first thing would be probably you don't need the class. Like, it might change graduation date potentially, but get another co-op. Get another co-op.
To further drill that point, it is something that I would really consider before taking on a class. I was doing an internship full-time this past summer. I also was taking stats. That engineering statistics, that is a class that is known to be not the worst. And so I can't imagine if I had taken, like, thermodynamics with this. But being realistic, my work week was the 40-hour work week. And then I would spend probably 3 or 4 hours after work every day doing the homework assignments, because it's like a 6-week class and you have quite a bit of work to do. So Monday through Thursday, every day. And then at least 4 or 5 hours on the weekends doing homework as well. And then there's an exam like every week. And so you have to have somebody willing to proctor that exam if you're not in Lexington. And you have to be able to have time to study for those exams. So you really have to be realistic with yourself about whether or not you are capable of handling that sort of workload. And that's something that's hard for people to do. But realistically, like, that was a mental strain that I was willing to take because of whatever reasons that I decided to take this class, because I committed to it and I was going to do it. But thankfully, I had a mentor who was willing to stay after work and proctor these exams for me, which was beyond kind, not something you can expect from people, and was something that I had to coordinate, like, in advance as well. So if you're going to do stuff like that, you really have to be on your A game with, like, planning, willing to reach out to people, ensure that certain things are okay. Before my internship, I reached out like a month in advance. No, before I even took the internship, I said, I might be going for a 2-week trip, for a research trip during this internship. And I started a week earlier instead of a week later. Like, you have to be on your A game with planning if you're going to do something like that. And honestly, it's not for the week. You're working sometimes for 12 to 14 hours in a day. So I would not recommend it. Yeah, like, I'm looking you dead in the eyes. Don't do it. Don't do it.
She's one of the few that could pull it off, but definitely depends on the job you're working too. Because if you're working any overtime at all, that would be something that
I thankfully was not working overtime. So, and they let me work 4 10s.
Zach and I get this question a lot, honestly. You know, could I take a class while I'm co-oping? He and I will both almost in unison say no. Mm-hmm. Yes, you can. Officially, yes, you can.
You can do anything.
It is a terrible idea.
Yes, horrible idea. And I'm saying that again.
But the other thing to add to that, beyond just the stress of trying to do a full workday, go enjoy being in the co-op. Go enjoy getting to be treated like an adult engineer, like an adult computer scientist. Like, go enjoy that experience and get everything out of it. You know, you may not always be in California, but one of our other career peers has, you know, been in California 2 summers in a row. Oh, no, she's been at Redondo Beach on the weekends. Ugh, the horror. No, you know, like, go enjoy that. Get to know your other co-ops. If there's a cohort, get to explore a little and not be stuck doing classwork.
Yep.
You know, so that would be my tip as well. Like, get to experience that. So when you come back, it is like fresh. You haven't been doing classroom work and studying.
Yeah.
And my
also,
first
when you're in co-op, sorry. Like, you are the special event. You are the guest of honor at whatever workplace that you're working at. So even the new hires that just graduated and got hired on, they are not getting the same treatment that you co-ops are getting. They're not getting just like as many lunches and special events and things planned for them like you are. So taking a class would definitely, I would think, get in the way of being able to commit to some of those things too. And I would say that's one of the best parts of being on co-op.
I know a lot of people do it because everyone is very much has in their mind they have to graduate in 4 years. I want to just erase that thought from your head. I don't want you to be here 10 years like that. I mean, we love you all, but like, we're not trying to keep you here for 10 years, but don't worry about the 4 years. Most engineering students do not graduate in 4 years across this country. If they're doing co-ops and internships, they're building the experience, and that is part of the education. So I think if you also get that out of your head and know that you are more competitive in the job market with the co-ops, even if you're graduating as everyone's like, I don't want to graduate late. It's not late. It's graduating on time with experience.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Everybody's timeline looks differently.
Mm-hmm. That is one thing that I don't think I would hesitate to do another co-op. If I could give myself another piece of advice, I'd be like, take that extra semester to do another co-op or make more money, first of all. That's money that I could have saved up you guys to buy a car right now, because now I have to buy a car. That's money I could have had in my bank account for that. So just throwing that out there. And it would have been so easy to do. But do that or take the semester to study abroad or something like that. That would be my piece of advice for my college self that just graduated in May. So. I guess that's the end.
Yeah, that wraps up all the questions we had prepared for you.
Wonderful.
Any final words you want to leave all of our listeners with?
I think the biggest one would be, like, come see us. Like, students are always like, I don't want to bother you. Like, that's actually my whole job. My whole job is to be bothered by you. Like, that is the job, you know? Like, and Zach and I never feel like we're being bothered. We love having students come in, but, like, come in as freshmen. Come in and don't wait until March of your senior year to go, I think I should get a resume together. We want to see you, and it is work. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you and say that looking for internships and jobs is work. We will make it easier work so that once you get that first one, the next one is easier, and then the next one after that. But please come see us. You are not bothering us. I mean, I don't want to talk to you at 11 p.m. on Friday night, but you probably don't want to talk to me then either. But come see us. Like, our whole job is to be bothered. So that we can help you.
And she's not too scary and intimidating, you guys. Yeah. See? She's somewhat friendly.
Somewhat.
I have a terrible sense of humor, so just know that there's bad jokes to be had, but,
We're not allowed to air them on this podcast, but if you come to our office, she'll give them to you one-on-one.
Yeah, they're not great. Very dry humor. But we love working with you all, so please come see us.
Yes, come see us. Even the career peers. I know
especially
we look
the career
like desk
peers.
workers, but you can stop by and chat with us as well.
I'll be gone, but come see Jessica.
I got to give the shout out on that if that gets to be my final thing. Our career peers, if people don't know, they're an extension of Zach and myself as a team. There's
like this.
there's several thousands of you all. There's 2 full-time staff members, and occasionally we have to do other things like plan career fairs or meet with employers. So we cannot meet with every single student that walks through the door, and the career fairs round that out because they won't toot their own horns, but we always will. They've done extensive co-ops, extensive internships. They have lots to offer and to give you, and yes, we put them through training, but they're out there to help anyone who walks in wanting help. So 1,000% come in and see them. You don't have to have an appointment, but they will help you get started.
Awesome.
So.
Thank you. And I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up today's episode of the peer review. I really appreciate you coming on, Betsy. It was great to have you. You always have wonderful things to say, but that's a goodbye from me.
All right, yeah, one final round of applause for Betsy. And also for Hannah, since this is the last episode, she'll be hosting with me. But thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Any last words from you, Hannah?
That's all. It was nice to meet you guys.
Thank you,
Catch you
Hannah.
next time on the peer review.
Awesome.